All right, here we go. So today we are going to start with emotional literacy. So this is, we're getting really close here at the end of the 6th chapter, and hopefully you like tapping. I love it. I think it's a really, really solid practice. It's interesting. It's very much sort of like in the, like in kind of the, I guess like the social media ethos. So you see it, but I think one of the most important things about it is the actual like full practice of it, which is naming what the feeling is that you're seeking to transform or transmute. The mantra that we say with it, because you see a lot of people that are tapping, and I think it speaks to the power of the individual like elements of it, but when they're put together, they are particularly potent. So really recommending, really honestly, what we're about to get into with emotional literacy is part of it is the naming of the feeling. And so with that being said, it's like each of those components in and of itself is a part of a like in and of itself is a standalone practice. Together you can create some very strong um, tools that are at the ready and can like be used relatively quickly. So I'm going to get into reading on emotional literacy here. So here we have, I'm going to raise this up. I'm a little sleepy today, so bear with me. So emotional literacy. So feelings and emotions happen regardless of control and denial. Folks with the inflating adaptation tend to be focused on the behavior of others. You made me feel this way. You make me want to give up. These sentiments place the control outside of oneself, making others hold ultimate responsibility for how we feel. The shrinking adaptation will tend to sweep an experience under the rug immediately as a lesson learned. I should know better. I shouldn't have trusted them, or it isn't that big of a deal. A lot of people have it far worse than I do. Along with sentiments like, it could have been worse, I consider myself lucky, instead of holding people accountable. A more balanced and literate emotional response will consider that other people need to be held responsible for their actions, but also that we play a large part in choosing how we respond. So there's that. So emotional literacy requires acceptance and awareness. Knowing the words to own and contain our emotions may not come easily at first. So be patient and kind with yourself as you work to increase and develop this capacity. So I noticed the pattern of a friend who would send me texts with intense and emotionally fraught detail about their health, career, and personal life. The text exchanges were rapid as his friend kept piling on more and more information about what happened and about the specific disappointments. Eventually, I'd ask, "How are you feeling about this?" Which is when the exchange would stop abruptly. I felt a bit used initially, thinking that this person had dumped all their problems on me and then had stopped texting mid discussion. Then I tried something different. Instead of saying, "How do you feel?" I asked about a specific emotion. For example, "Do you feel relieved?" After providing a specific emotion that my friend could confirm or deny, the conversation continued. For some folks, the prospect of naming emotions without any help is overwhelming. So there's no way to avoid feelings and emotions. And actually, before I jump into that, I really like this was, I'm trying to think of what really, like, is it a supplemental kind of point to that, which is Actually, okay, supplemental point to that is that with emotions and thoughts and like actually I'm just gonna say emotions and thoughts, which is like kind of they'll snow globe and they'll take up a lot of room, like as much as we'll give it and make available for it. And the thing with it is that we're in that state, it feels very self-evident that that they're like what they are. So it's almost like an insult to be like put a name on it, where it's like, oh, it's so obvious. Then we try to put on a name on it, all of a sudden it's like you're realizing how much like snow globe is there. So the like naming of it, like that specific like emotion, the feeling versus it just being like in the like thick of it, like just feeling it, like talking like repeating the circumstances, like they were doing this and they were at this and they did say this and they did say that and I'm blah blah blah, and like like having feelings, and like I'm like this is just like right now it's just I feel like shit and I'm really trying to like versus being able like, and so that like it's a real distinction between that and saying this is fresh, like this is the specific emotion I'm having about this. Like we'll get into that. I'm not gonna like over speak the reading, which I do all the time. So there's no way to avoid feelings and emotion. Work, children, bills, relationships, low energy, and the stresses of life are ongoing. All emotions and thoughts pass eventually, but resisting and denying them keep us in holding patterns until they're resolved or given the chance to be processed. The same feelings and emotions will keep attaching themselves to different narratives. If we're not practiced in emotional literacy, we may need some help identifying feelings and exploring their causes and triggers before we can release them. The emotional hygiene practices in the Parinama method helped us wash them out of our system. Otherwise, how we feel gets gunked up, weighed down, and even fatigued. In our hard charging, competitive world that reveres stoicism and can view emotion as weak, simply acknowledging and respecting them can create meaningful shifts. Yeah. A sudden downshift in your mood that seems to be out of nowhere can lead to confusion. Sometimes it happens when I'm scrolling through social media. Suddenly I feel bad. And when I scroll back up, eventually I find the post that sparked a feeling of inadequacy, loss, envy, or regret. Part of emotional literacy is connecting the stimuli to the feeling and naming the specific feeling. The ability to effectively name something takes away its expansiveness. Following are 4 steps for increasing and developing emotional literacy: pause, name, contain, and process. So here we have, I'm going to say those again. These are even worth writing down if you have a pen or paper handy, which is pause in terms of emotional reaction, pause, name, contain, and process. So for pause, the first step in emotional literacy is to pause when feelings arise. Expressing emotion is not about unbridled catharsis or knee-jerk reflexes. Brain scientist Jill Bolte Taylor explains that in 90 seconds, an emotion can be noticed, identified, and in many cases will fade away if we allow it to. Feeling and emotion are interpretations, and when we let some time pass, we can see what remains when the dust settles and can have a better chance of having a constructive response and processing without causing distress or harm. One of the things really, and as far as like this hairball that we're talking about with Parinama, which is like the formation of a reflex based off of early experience, the belief system associated with it creates our sense of what reality is, and then we project that out into the world. The world responds to it, and then it strengthens this cycle of this reflex being associated with this belief system, and the reflex being like outside of our like consciousness. And so one of the things with the pause that we're doing is like one of the things we're just trying to create just enough space so that we're not like absorbed, and that we can actually become somewhat like observant of it as a phenomenon and not as just like an overarching absorbing reality. So next is name. So once we've paused, the second step is to acknowledge that emotion is happening and to identify it. Find the feeling that most closely matches yours on the wheel. Coming up next. Next, locate it in your body without trying to change it. Examples include upset stomach, butterflies, jaw tension, eye strain, or headache. With a sense of curiosity, seek to understand and tune into it before asking the emotion how it would like to express itself. You can also approach this by finding the sensation in the body and, based on its location, connect it to the associated hub. Then think through what has happened in the past day or so that relates to the hub. Examples include tension in the throat from not feeling understood, tightness in the chest from grief or loneliness, and having an upset stomach from feeling undermined. See figure 5.3 in the Parinama Method wheel for the Parinama Method wheel of emotions, which is color coded for a variety of emotions as a suggestion for association with certain hubs. So I guess now is the time to show it. So here it is. And the way that it's organized is that it's color coded to the hub. And the idea here is that we're looking through these words and we're finding the feelings we have. And in the wheel, there's the way, and it's actually not explained in the book. It's just how I created this, is that there's emotions that are like, not just negative. There's feeling cherished, connected, romantic, gentle, sensitive, love, feeling grief, sad, rejected, unsupported, undeserving, lonely, embarrassed, envious, jealous, withdrawn, isolated. So those are fourth hub. So looking at the wheel, which is on page 112, and spending a little time just being kind of like exploratory and curious about like what is the feeling. And even, I mean, of course, not every emotion or feeling like is on here, every feeling but like what we're looking at here is to try to really tune in as best we can and really connecting with both the thoughts and the feelings. So okay, so next is contain. All right, contain. The third step is containment. Differentiate what's happening inside you and what's happening around you. I use the invisible pod. So Peter Levine draws the boundary with skin sensation, bringing attention to what's inside versus what's outside, and bringing awareness to the knowledge that there's a difference. So this is really goes back to what we have read about previously with enmeshment and lack of emotional differentiation, which is an which is like causes interruptions in terms of our own, like a big, so rewind, a big thing about emotional literacy is knowing that our feelings are actually contained within us, and that what's arising in terms of our responses and feelings is like it's its own phenomenon that does happen in response to things that are around us, but that we are sovereign in terms of, I mean, it's like ultimately there's sovereignty and the like absorption into the feelings and emotions of others is one of the things that makes emotional literacy challenging, because then we're kind of tapping into like another sort of unknown universe. So anyway, so number 4 is process. So the 4th step is to explore and release. Once you've found sensation in your body, see what it wants to do. Does it want to shake, squeeze, hit, yell, or be listened to? If you're comfortable doing this, ask it sweetly, baby, what do you need? And just listen. Allow it to communicate. You can do this with non-dominant hand journaling. With your dominant hand, write the question, baby, what do you need? And in the less dominant hand, write the answer. In part 3, I provide journaling practices for emotional hygiene. See chapter 11. So this is kind of an interesting exercise, and it's kind of, in my own experience, it's kind of shocking that like the response in the non-dominant hand, at least for me. So there's two pieces in this, right? Like, so in the processing, and this is kind of drops this, like, it's kind of like lacks some kind of pomp and circumstance here, but what we're talking about is, it's like if there's tightness in your throat, asking like, what, do you like, and look, an example would be like, I want to yell. And that's happened with people. Like, I actually just want to scream. And so like a remedy for that is get in your car, drive down the highway, and scream. Turn on, and if it feels really like kind of like that's going to feel like actually kind of reactivating for you in a way that's negative, turn on some music and like sing along really loudly with it, and like kind of like like dip in that way. Because I think, I know that for some folks, like driving down the street screaming would actually be kind of terrifying for them. So yeah, so one of the things is like singing, like really like express it like loudly with music, but even things like, and we're going to get into, I think we do the accordion next, so that's going to be for the next reading. I'm not going to do that today. But it's like this thing about feeling a tension in our body or feeling a sensation and being able to attend to it is pretty profound and can feel really foreign. So being patient with what this involves, which is, if and once, and I'm trying to think about this, where it's like, this is a little bit like unpacking the hairball, because it's like we have the reflex and a belief about what it is, and part of this is actually the feeling and being like, what does it actually want, not what do I always give it, which I think is a larger topic than I'm feeling up to taking on right now. But if you want to talk more about it, put a comment in there and I'll get into it. But yeah, this one requires like a little bit. I'm a little too sleepy for like really diving in on this. But this practice really, I think the thing is these 4 pages or whatever in the book, page 109, where you have the tapping and you have the emotional literacy practice, which is about, it's like pausing, naming, right? So pausing, naming, containing, and processing. So one of the things too is that when our emotions are like, there's kind of a thing, and this is something, actually, this has a little juice in it that I can use right now, is that there's a thing about like, I think until we really connect with what our integrity is versus adaptations and adapted behavior, expressing adaptations can feel like it is integrity. So the feeling of like, if I don't say this right now, I am not going to be in my integrity. And so I was talking with someone. I was having a parinama session with somebody, and they were talking about running into somebody who they had a long, like a very emotionally loaded conflict with, and they saw them at a social event that they really like were excited about being at. And so they were feeling kind of conflicted about the fact that they didn't say anything, and kind of feeling like, wow, that was really like outside of my integrity. I had the chance and then I didn't do it. And so one of the things with literacy is that we're able to contextualize, because if we're going to pause, name it, contain it, and process it, instead of the notion that if we're triggered, if we don't react, that means that we're acting outside of our integrity. Like one of the things that does is it actually causes us credibility. It causes us like losing, like, one of the things, as someone who tends to be very vocal historically, and or tends to, whatever, is that there's the notion of, I wish I said that, and then there's also having said it and realizing that most of the time it doesn't really go the way that we think it's going to go, because it, like maybe there's a lot of anger. And so if, say, you're at the social event, you're expressing that anger, and what happens is that the person says, it's been really heavy for me right now. I just haven't been able to deal with this effectively. So now you're at this event that you wanted to enjoy, and now there's like a whole new suite of things to process and deal with. So I think one of the things about feeling an emotion, and especially if, when possible, with holding people accountable, is that we become right with ourselves to a greater extent before we become right with the world. And that might be considered to be very controversial, but I'm okay with that. Okay with that. So anyway, so look, we are almost at the end. Oh, no, we're not. We've got a ways to go. Sorry, it's a big chapter. It's important. So here we are. Next, we're going to be doing the charging and discharging. And this one is super key for everything that we're going to be doing moving forward. About how we actively are like bringing energy into our body and restoring it, and like how we are actively and consciously discharging and releasing energy. So anyhow, thank you for coming along. I will tell you, it means a lot to me. I know people are watching these, they're talking to me about them, which is great. But if you are, and I know it's like, it really matters a lot to me. It matters a lot to me to be getting a response on these right now, especially since, like, let's see. Yeah, it means a lot to me. So I just want to express that. So, especially a special thank you to Mira. It actually means honestly, it's a lot. I will say that the more we're getting into this, especially with second hub and third hub, it is a lot to talk through these chapters, and in this particular format, which is talking to nobody. When I'm working with people and I'm able to kind of eyeball to eyeball them, or even kind of hear what they're saying and how they're responding, and take that into account, it's just a really different experience for me that gives me a lot more in this process. So I will say that I really appreciate interaction with this. And also, if you have people in your life that you feel that Parinama method would be a tool for them that is useful, please talk to people about this. This is, please talk to people and offer it. And if you're in a case where you're like, I'm not in the position to give it or whatever, like reach out to me. I'm here because the thing is about this is that it is my mission to get this to the people who feel called to have access to this level of toolkit. So anyway, thank you, and I will see you next time. Love you. Bye.